I am choosing him, but if it doesn't work out in a few months, we can talk, she said, expecting me to wait. I deleted her number that night. 3 months later, she showed up at my apartment crying. He dumped her. I answered the door with my new girlfriend behind me. The last normal sound I remember was the kettle whistling. It was a Tuesday. I was making her tea the way she liked it. Honey, no milk, because she had had a long day. Our apartment. For 2 years it had been a sanctuary. Now it just felt like a set waiting for the scene to start. I had felt the distance growing for weeks, a slow leak in a tire. Sarah had become a ghost in her own life, smiling at me through a pane of glass. Her phone, once left casually on the couch, now lived in her clenched fist. The laughter that used to echo in our tiny kitchen had been replaced by the tense tap-tap-tap of her thumbs on glass. I carried the mug into the living room. She was curled on the sofa, staring at her phone with an intensity usually reserved for solving a crisis. A faint smile touched her lips. It vanished when she saw me. "Thanks," she said, taking the mug without looking at me. Her thumb continued to scroll. "Bad day?" I asked, sitting in the armchair opposite. "No, just long." She finally put the phone down, but placed it face down on the cushion beside her, a fortress wall. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, loaded. It was the silence of something rotting. I took a breath. "Who is Leo?" The question hung in the air, simple and brutal. Her head snapped up. The color drained from her face, then flooded back in 2 bright, guilty spots on her cheeks. I had seen the name last week, a notification that flashed on her locked screen as she showered. "Leo, can't stop thinking about last night." Winking face, I told myself it was a friend from work, a joke, but my gut knew better. "Leo, your coworker, the one you have been texting until 2 a.m., the one you had late work drinks with last Thursday. Who is he to you, Sarah?" She didn't try to deny it. Instead, a strange relief seemed to wash over her, mixed with a defensive anger. She drew her knees up to her chest, wrapping her arms around them, not a posture of sadness, but of fortification. "He is a friend. He gets me, gets you." I repeated the words, letting their hollow echo fill the space. "And I don't. It is not that you don't," she said, her voice gaining a rehearsed momentum. "It is just, with you, it is all so planned. So safe. We have our routines, our little life. Leo is spontaneous. He sees the world differently. He makes me feel alive." "Alive," I said. The word tasted like ash. I thought of holding her hair back while she was sick with food poisoning, of driving across town at 3 a.m. to pick her up when her car broke down, of the quiet, steadfast living we had done together. That wasn't alive to her. "It was boring." "I love you," she said, and it was the worst thing she could have said. "But I am not in love with you anymore. It is like you are my best friend, and Leo, he is a spark. I need that spark." This is what psychologists call monkey branching, not letting go of one relationship until you have secured the next one. I just looked at her. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I just sat in the wreckage of our life and listened to her narrate the tour. Her posture softened slightly. She leaned forward, her voice dropping into a confidential, almost tender tone. "This was the real performance. Look," she said, reaching out to place her hand on my knee. I didn't pull away. I just looked at her hand, this familiar thing that now felt like a stranger's. "I am choosing him. I have to see where this goes. It feels important." She paused, searching my face for devastation, finding only stillness. "But he is unpredictable, you know. It might not work out. He is not stable like you are." She said stable like it was a disease, so I just need some time. "A few months. If it doesn't work out with him, we can talk, okay?" She squeezed my knee, a parody of comfort, a promise of future scraps from her table. "Just don't hate me. Don't close any doors. Can you do that for me?" The full, breathtaking audacity of it crashed over me. I wasn't a person to her. I was a pension plan. A reliable, boring fund she could cash in if her risky investment tanked. She had chosen to leave but demanded I hold my breath, my life in suspension until she decided if her choice was worthy. My heart didn't break in that moment. It turned to something else, something cold and hard and clear. I slowly, deliberately lifted her hand from my knee and placed it back in her own lap. The contact felt toxic. "I understand," I said, my voice quiet, flat, and utterly final. The confusion that flickered in her eyes was the first satisfying thing I had felt in weeks. She was prepared for tears, for yelling, for begging. This is called the pick-me dance, and I wasn't going to dance it. She was not prepared for a quiet man looking at her like she was a complicated problem he had just solved. She left an hour later. She packed a hastily filled suitcase, waiting for the other shoe to drop. It never did. When the suitcase zipper screeched in the quiet, she finally broke. Aren't you going to say anything? Her voice was sharp, frayed at the edges. I looked at her. At the suitcase, at the door, drive safe. The slam of the door was her final word. The apartment didn't feel empty then. It felt cleansed. If you think I was right to refuse to be her backup plan, hit the subscribe button. We talk about self-respect and boundaries here on Story Sparks. I didn't move for a long time. I listened to the silence. Then I got up and began. I started in the bathroom, her side of the counter, a hair dryer. 3 kinds of moisturizer, a ceramic jar full of bobby pins. I placed them neatly into a cardboard box. I didn't smell her shampoo. I just saw objects that needed relocating. I moved to the bedroom. My hands were steady. From the closet, I took the dresses she had left, the sweaters she deemed off-season. I folded them with a precision I didn't know I possessed, creating sharp, orderly rectangles of fabric. There was no rage in it. No cathartic hurling of memories. This was an exorcism performed with surgical calm. I was not erasing her. I was auditing inventory and removing what no longer belonged. With every item packed, the space felt more like my own. Later, I taped the boxes shut, the sound loud and definitive. I wrote Sarah in bold black marker on each one and lined them up by the front door like obedient soldiers. Then and only then I took out my phone. I navigated to her contact, a picture of her laughing, sunlight in her hair. I felt nothing. I hit edit. I deleted the number. I deleted the photo. I saved the contact as just Sarah, a blank generic entry. Then I opened my messaging app, found our thread. I tapped the top right, block this caller. A confirmation pop-up appeared, block Sarah. I hit block. It was that simple. The digital cord cut. I sent one final text to the number I had just deleted but still knew by heart. It was 11:47 p.m. Me, your remaining belongings are packed and by the front door. They will be outside apartment 4 billion tomorrow from 5 to 7 p.m. for pickup. After 7 p.m. they will be donated. The key to this apartment no longer works. I didn't wait for a reply. I put my phone on silent. Went to bed and slept a deep, dreamless sleep for the first time in months. The next evening at 5:05 the knock came. I opened the door, my body blocking the entrance. She looked different, tired, but with a wired energy. She was dressed up, Leo's influence I supposed. Hey, she said, attempting a soft, regretful smile. Are you okay? I know this is hard. I barely slept. I didn't answer the question. Your things are there, I said, nodding to the boxes. She flinched. Thrown by the lack of script. Right, yeah, she hesitated. I want you to know this is really difficult for me too, but it is for the best for both of us. We were in a rut. I remained silent, leaning against the door jamb. This is the gray rock method, being as uninteresting and unresponsive as a rock to deny the manipulator emotional fuel. Her frustration began to peek through. You are not even going to fight for us, she asked. A brittle laugh escaping her. See, this is what I mean. You are just so passive. You are just accepting it. Where is the emotion? Where is the fight? There it was, the final twisted logic she wanted to be fought for. Even as she walked away, my calmness wasn't dignity to her. It was an insult. It denied her the starring role in the breakup tragedy. I finally pushed off from the door frame and stood straight. I looked at her, really looked. Not at the Sarah I had loved, but at the person standing before me. The entitlement was still there, now tinged with panic because her show was falling flat. There is nothing to fight for, I said, my voice even. Devoid of the heat she so desperately wanted. You made a choice. I am making mine. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. The script was in tatters. Goodbye, Sarah. I stepped back into my apartment and closed the door. The aftermath. The first week was a void, not of sadness, but of sensation. The apartment now truly mine echoed with a quiet I learned to appreciate. I didn't look for her. I had blocked her on every social platform in a single methodical hour. I wasn't strong, I was thorough, but the real world has threads, and ours were woven through mutual friends. They became my unwilling fuzzy window into the karma that was beginning to simmer. The first thread was Mark, a friend from college. So Sarah and Leo, huh? That was sudden. It was her choice. I said, yeah, well, she is really excited, says he is electric. They are already talking about a weekend trip to the coast. Good for her, I said, and I meant it. The farther and faster she ran, the better. The second month, the threads grew darker. I ran into Priya, a former coworker of Sarah's. Oh, hi. God, I heard about everything. How are you holding up? I am well, thanks. Listen, between us. Sarah is not. She came by the old office last week for lunch. Looked exhausted. Said Leo is a lot. Threw a tantrum at a nice restaurant because the wine wasn't to his liking. She spent the whole lunch comparing him to you. saying how you would never make a scene. A strange, quiet feeling bloomed in my chest. It wasn't schadenfreude, it was validation. The universe was simply proving a theorem I had already solved. Unstable things are unstable. I hope she figures it out, I said, and it was the truth. I hoped she would figure it out far away from me. The final thread snapped about 10 weeks in. It was Dave, a mutual friend who had initially been firmly Team Sarah. Hey. You heard what Dave about Leo? The guy is a total piece of work, dumped her via text, if you can believe it. I could believe it. Some text about her being too needy and living in the past. Can you imagine? After everything she left for him, she is a wreck, absolutely shattered. So, she is going to reach out, man. She is real sorry. I think you should hear her out. Everyone deserves a second chance, right? I looked out my window at the city lights. Dave, I said, my voice flat. The moment she chose to leave, she used up every chance she had with me. My involvement ended then. Don't call me to mediate her regrets. I hung up. The circle was complete. The spark had burned her down to cinders. And now the safety net she had so arrogantly assumed would be there was about to get a very firm answer. The final confrontation. It was a Tuesday night. Almost poetically mirroring the night it had begun. Rain sheeted down my living room window. I was in the kitchen, the air rich with the smell of garlic and red wine. Maya stood beside me stirring a simmering pan of bolognese. She was telling a story about a difficult client, her hands animated, her eyes rolling with affectionate exasperation. We had been dating for 6 weeks. It was easy. It was light. She was a warm, steady presence who asked for nothing but companionship and gave the same freely. The knock on the door was intrusive, out of sync with the soft jazz and the rain. You expecting someone? Maya asked, glancing at the time. No. I said, drying my hands. A cold certainty settled in my gut. I walked to the door and opened it. There she stood, Sarah, drenched, her hair plastered to her skull, mascara bleeding down her cheeks. She looked smaller, deflated. A waterlogged version of the woman who had left, her eyes wide and desperate, locked onto mine. You didn't answer any of my... She began, her voice a shaky ruin. Sarah, I said, my tone neutral, my body firmly blocking the doorway. What are you doing here? I need to talk to you, please. It was a ragged sob. I was so stupid, so stupid. Leo, he used me. He said awful things. Everything you were, he wasn't. You were kind, you were steady. I see it now. I see everything now. I want to fix this. I want to come home. Her eyes darted past me, trying to peer into the warm-lit apartment, searching for the familiar landscape of her backup plan. From the kitchen, Maya's voice called out, warm. Curious, utterly unaware of the earthquake at the door. Babe, everything okay? The sauce is almost ready to plate. The effect was instantaneous. Sarah's face, already pale, went bone white. Her jaw went slack. Her desperate, pleading expression froze, then shattered into pure, unvarnished shock. It was the look of someone who had read the last page of a book only to find the story had been rewritten. I didn't turn. I kept my eyes on Sarah. Watching the realization detonate in her mind, the safety net was not just gone, it was now holding someone else. I allowed a faint, unreadable smile to touch my lips. It held no warmth, no malice. It was simply the expression of a man stating an obvious fact. It is fine, Maya. I called back, my voice calm and even, just someone from my past who got lost. I looked at Sarah, at the crumbling ruins of her arrogance and her plan. The rain dripped from her jacket onto my welcome mat. You were right, Sarah, I said, my voice quiet, final, and utterly clear. It didn't work out with him. I paused, letting the full horrific irony of the moment sink into her. Her eyes welled with new different tears, tears of understanding, of utter defeat. But you were wrong about everything else. I continued, we have nothing to talk about. My life moved on. I took a slight step back, my hand on the door. I suggest you do the same. I closed the door. The soft, definitive click of the latch was the period at the end of the sentence. I stood there for a second listening. I heard a choked sound, a muffled sob. And then the slow, shuffling footsteps retreating down the hall. I turned. Maya was leaning against the kitchen doorway, a gentle question in her eyes. Everything all right? I walked to her. The scent of garlic and herbs and her perfume enveloping me. I put my hands on her waist and kissed her forehead. Just a ghost, I said, and for the first time that night my voice was warm, infused with a present and tangible love. Now about that sauce, it smells incredible. She smiled, the question fading, trust replacing it. It is, you are going to love it. As I helped her plate the food, I felt it. A profound, quiet lightness. No anger, no lingering pain. Not even pity, just the serene, unshakable knowledge that the past was finally completely just that. The ghost had come calling, and finding no one home had simply faded away for good. Thanks for watching.